Sometimes when you wake up, you just choose violence. But today, Bushiroad chose justice!
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another extra Cardfight update. And I'm not gonna beat around the bush. Dai-kaiser finally got confirmed for the V-Series. Yes, Dai-kaiser is officially the card that they're gonna introduce for the upcoming V-Clan Collection Volume 1 for Dimension Police. But as we can see in this artwork, there are two other robots that will be joining Dai-kaiser. The leftmost card is a brand new Grade 1 called Dimensional Robo Dai Prop, and the card in the middle is an old familiar face, the original Grade 2 for Dai-kaiser, which is Dimensional Robo Kaiser. The interesting thing is that unlike most other reveals for V-Clan Collection where they only show the artwork, they actually told us a hint to what these cards will do and how they will play out. So these are the description that we got for the new Dimensional Police cards. For as the Grade 1 Dimensional Robo Dai Prop, they told us that it has a draw skill as a Vanguard unit, but then also as a rearguard has the skill to power up our Vanguard. So typical Dimensional Police shenanigans. And then if we go to Dimensional Robo Kaiser, probably the Grade 2, it has the ability of a powerful skill when it's being rode upon, so by a Grade 3, and probably in this case you want to ride it with Dai-kaiser, but then also as a rearguard it's also a powerful attacker. So as we see so far, the Grade 1 and the Grade 2 are very flexible cards that you probably want to ride, but also want to call to the rearguard circle to enable very powerful attacks. But then we get to Dai-kaiser, and we probably had an assumption that if they ever bring Dai-kaiser in the V-Series, that what it would probably do, but now they confirm our beliefs. Because the description for Dai-kaiser reads as follows: hit with high-powered attacks that can only be blocked by sentinels. This is interesting, because this can either mean that they just give it a crap ton of power and the only reasonable way to block it is by a sentinel, or they're gonna give it some type of guard restrict that you can only block it with sentinels. So curious of what direction they're going to take here, but then followed up with, even when those sentinels are called, believe in the power of justice and break through. So we can assume that Dai-kaiser is going to get its famous or infamous, depending on what side of the attack you are on, guard break. So I'm very curious of how this is going to be, what type of restriction or condition they're going to attach to this guard break, and see how this will play out. But there's also an extra tidbit that they say that it has excellent synergy with Great Dayusha. So I'm very curious of how this is going to play out, if it's going to have some Dimensional Robo synergies, or that you have this guard break that maybe will play out for the entirety of the turn. So if you superior right into Dayusha, that you then have double guard break for both attacks. I'm very curious how this will play out, because this could be very interesting for Dimension Police. But apparently, these aren't the only big metal chunks of robots that Bushiroad had in store for us today, because they also did the same exact thing for Nova Grappler. And yes, our theories around Cat Butler being reprinted are true, because we got these cards for Nova Grappler, which are of course the ultimate Raizer Legion pair. And we see also I believe a brand new Raizer to the left, which is probably going to be a Grade 1, because that means we have another Grade 1, Grade 2 and Grade 3 cards printed here on this artwork. Now, for those particular cards, we got the following description. As for the support card, we have Raptor Raizer, and its description reads as, lets you convert another rearguard into a Raizer. Call any Raizer depending on the current situation. This is interesting, because this probably will be a Raizer searcher for the entire archetype. And there are a couple of Raizers already in circulation for the V-Series, and maybe has even some premium application with older Raizer cards. So this could be really interesting depending on how this plays out and what they mean with depending on the current situation. It can also mean that maybe it only will search out your Legion pairs, and depending if you have the other, it searches out the other. It could be that way, but we have to wait and see what the actual specifications are going to be. Now, speaking about the Legion pair, for the Grade 2 Ultimate Raizer Dual Flare, we have this description: a rearguard that countercharges while powering up both itself and your Vanguard. So it basically is just extra power, and counter-charging is nice because it probably will help us to compensate or mitigate the cost that we need to pay for the Vanguard. Because for the Vanguard, the main Grade 3 Ultimate Raizer Mega Flare, it has the following description: restand your Raizers and launch a continuous string of attacks. combine it with dual flare for something even stronger than simply restanding rear guards. So this basically hints a bit back to its old Legion-esque theming, where these cards together will be much stronger and you want to have them together to get all these multi-attacks out. So I'm very curious how this plays out and what this other support card brings to the table, which allows you to tutor out these Raizers. So I'm very curious of how Dai-kaiser as well as the ultimate Raizer Legion combo is gonna bring to the table for the respective clans with the upcoming V-Clan collection sets. Overall, this brings the hype to a whole nother level. Yesterday was already a lot of hype with all the reveals for the reprints that we've got confirmed and all the other cards, but this is on a whole nother level, and we all know how Different Fight reacts to this news. It is probably the best day of the year and maybe even of multiple years for him right now. But interesting enough, these weren't the only reveals in terms of robot news, because we also got a surprise reveal of a brand new Grade 1 rare for Brandt Gate for the upcoming Brush of Legends Set 2 set. And although it's just a Grade 1 rare card, it is actually a phenomenal unit that will probably change the way how Brandt Gate's gonna be played. And it's a Imprison support card. And that card being this Grade 1 something something bug motor. I don't know what the kanjis actually read in the name, but its name is bug motor something. Now the skill of this card is act on rearguard circle. If your prison has one or less cards, cost, rest this unit, choose a unit from your opponent's drop zone and imprison it in your prison. So this is a card that allows us to imprison cards consistently for free, and more importantly, it allows it to get those cards from the drop zone as well. Now for me personally, this will probably replace the Festival Collection Grade 2 that has on hit to imprison stuff from the drop zone, because this does the exact same thing, but then on a more consistent basis. Yes, the restriction is that it can only do this if you have one or less cards in your prison, but probably the most essential situation in the game is getting to that initial first couple of cards in the prison to win the resource match in the early stages of the game. In those scenarios, this actually matters, because probably your opponent is going to fight for you for the amount of cards in the prison by getting them out of the prison constantly, and if they do that, you can probably activate this card a couple of times through the match for extra free prison targets. And in the early game, it has actually some really nice synergy with your right line, because if you right a Grade 2, you snipe something from their hand, and they can immediately use this card to get another card from the drop zone, which they probably pitch for their right line discard, so you always have some targets to get into the prison itself. And then probably next turn they're gonna free their units a little bit to compensate for the losses, but then you can of course immediately use this card to get another card from the drop zone into the prison to keep the thing going. And every single time you can resolve this card, that's one extra prison card you get there that your opponent needs to waste a soul blast or a counter blast that you didn't need to use in order to imprison something else. And this could help you to potentially open up some slots in your deck space where you don't have to dedicate cards that can imprison on their own with soul blast costs or unplace effects, because you have a card like this that can also substitute for the imprison effect. Because don't forget, Seraph Snow can already imprison two other cards for a counter blast, thus helping you to get to the probably the more important numbers that you need to have to get all your skills live. The question does arrive: what happens if you have multiple prisons in your set order zone and you put a card into one prison and a card in the other prison? Does this card still work? I don't know what the actual rulings are on this with multiple prisons being active, as usually you just have one prison active and not two. What's the situation then? Because if it then just looks at one of the two prisons, you could potentially put every card into one of your prison and keep one prison just empty, and that means you can always look at that card to activate the skill. I don't know if that is allowed or how this works. I think Bushiroad needs to clarify the interaction with the fact if you have multiple prisons in your set order, how these cards actually look at those conditions. So that's an interesting thought that just came to my mind, where I'm curious of how that ruling actually interacts. And if that wasn't exciting enough, we also got 4 more clans revealed for the upcoming Revival Selection set. So as I said yesterday, it's probably very likely that every single day we're gonna get the reveal of 4 clans. And today, we got the reveal of Gold Paladin, Tachikaze, Dark Irregulars, and Neo Nectar. And these reveals are very interesting, because for Gold Paladin, we saw these reprints, and oh my god, are these reprints godly. Yes, we knew about the Prominence Glare going to be imported, but besides that, having Glorying Rain Dragon, as well as both these Gurgud Strides being reprinted and the Semi-Flare as a G-Guardian reprint, is kind of ridiculous. Yes, the old Gurgud is it's just there, but it's for the theme of all these random grade 3s being reprinted. And then of course Casual Liberator is an interesting stand trigger that might or might not be useful. But besides that, the G-Zone reprints, these are golden. But then if we move over to Tachikaze, we see actually something very interesting. First off, we see the G-Zone reprints with Gluttony Dogma, which is a nice reprint. Also the Gaia Stride is nice, the G-Guardian is also pretty good. But then if we go below, we see the Gaia grade 3, which honestly isn't that bad of a card. But then we see 2 V-Series cards being reprinted, and I think these are the first V-Series cards being confirmed within the Revival Selection set. So this means they're now also selecting V-Series cards to potential targets for their reprints. Now, these 2 cards are pretty good and very generic, so I don't think it's not that bad to see these cards being reprinted, as I don't think there are a lot of old Tachikaze cards that still matter till in this current day and age, but I could be wrong here. And then besides that, we see the stand trigger, which is actually a still valid stand trigger if I'm going to be very honest, so it's very nice that they also reprinted this card for Tachikaze as well. But if we go to Dark Regulars, we see something concerning. Because yes, Gastille is getting reprinted. And that means they probably aren't going to hit this thing anytime soon. Because that would be really weird to first reprint it and then immediately, maybe 1 or 2 months later, to immediately ban it. They could, but it's a lot less likely now. But besides that, the other reprints are still really good. Dimension Creeper, the old Yellow Bolt, the Monochrome of Nightmareland, really good cards. And the G-Zone with Blathermouse as well as the generic G-Guard are all fine targets. So overall, the Revival Selection cards for Dark Regulars are also pretty damn spicy. And then if we move over to New Nectar, we see once again very solid reprints, as we've got Wilhelmina for the Stride, which is a very powerful Stride. We also got Antero as the G-Guard, which is probably the strongest G-Guard they have access to. The Arsha choice is kind of weird. Like, we have 3 different Arshas, but it's either this Arsha or the blue Arsha. But I don't know if this particular Arsha has any viability over the blue Arsha variant right now. Honestly, I have no clue, but it's here. And then besides that, we see some very generic, solid reprints with the Pansy Musketeer Sylvia as a reprint, which is nice because if we then calculate the reprints in the clan selection, that means the entire Musketeer archetype for the V-Series cards are gonna get reprinted straight into the set. So that means the new Musketeer deck in V-Series can be played very cheaply. And then of course we also see Maiden of Gladiolus, which was a staple card for the Katrina build, and as seen as was an old trial deck card, it was kind of hard to get. Don't know if it's still used till this day with Katrina banned, but might get a resurgence in the future. And of course we got the Bloom PG, and interesting enough, Cosmo Pixie Lisbeth. Now, this is a card that's limited at 1, same as with Crook for Bermuda Triangle. These cards being confirmed as reprints, does that mean their limitations going to be lifted? Or are they still going to be at 1? Kind of interesting to think about. But with that, that also concludes all the new news that we've got today. Now, overall, a very surprising, exciting day. We knew we would get new card reveals for V-Clan collection, but oh boy, did I not foresaw these reveals. Like Dai-kaiser as well as the Legion for Nova Grappler, the Raizer Legion, are kind of ridiculous being confirmed. There are a lot of other cards that we have some inclination will probably be reprinted, but these cards being confirmed is pretty exciting. And now, the hype level for V-Clan collection is through the roof, because I cannot wait to see what the other cards are and how the skills are going to work out, because just looking at the description of these skills, it looks to be just like V-Clan selection earlier this year. It's going to be very flavorful and potentially also powerful. So I cannot wait to see what the other reveals are going to be and when we finally are going to get the actual skills for V-Clan collection, as that will probably be in a couple of weeks. It won't be all too long from now. So the coming weeks are going to be very exciting. But with that said, let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of the confirmation of Dai-kaiser as well as the Ultimate Raizer Legions, and of course the reprints that we've got for the premium selection set. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments section down below. As always, this video has been brought to you by our lovely patrons over at patreon.com/FingernInsider. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel or everything that's happening on the channel, you can simply go to patreon.com/FingernInsider and become a Patreon today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Time Leaf, and I see you guys in the next one!